saying out loud. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's episode. Whenever I'm with them, something inside. Going to Buc-ee's, a Whataburger drive-through. The heat starts rising and it don't get cooler, and my truck's old as shit, so it don't get cool in a heat wave. Da-da-da-da, heat wave. Tractor. That's where that song started going, okay? Listen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monday. Coming at you a little later on a Monday, but still coming on you. Monday. I didn't mean to say I was coming on you, okay? Sometimes things just come out in this podcast, and you just got to keep rolling with it. So, ladies and gentlemen, twinkle, twinkle, welcome to Monday. If you're like, Evan, that was an interesting song that you opened up with. Listen, I'm a thematic person. I love being festive, okay? I'm a festive person. And the truth is, right now in Texas, we are experiencing a historical heat wave. Heat wave. Whenever I'm outside, got sweat in my ass crack. Wherever I'm going, I'm gonna die. If I go to Buc-ee's or H-E-B, trust me, I'm gonna be sweating in a heat wave. I mean, you guys really should be paying for this podcast, okay? Listen, the gems I be dropping, okay? The gems I be dropping. I'm about to put this shit on Patreon. I'm not really. Listen, not really. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going through a historical heat wave in Texas right now. And it's been something, okay? It is an experience, because I've lived through a couple of Texas summers before. This isn't my first rodeo, okay? And these kind of heat waves really separate the boys from the they-thems, okay? It's just true. Whatever your pronouns are, this is going to make them spelled in all caps if you make it through this, okay? That's what it feels like, all right? Because you go outside and you are physically assaulted by the sun, okay? That's what it feels like. I go out at maybe 8:15, 8:30 to let my dog out. Yeah, I don't need to be waking up that early, okay? Listen, most of my job is at night, okay? Listen, don't judge me just because you're working 9 to 5, all right? Anyway, back to the story. I go out at 8:15 this morning, let my dog out. I am brutally met with a jab, hook, right cross, uppercut from the vitamin D assassin himself, El Sol, the sun in the sky, okay? And this ain't no sun out of the fucking Teletubbies, not that sweet little sun. This is the Harvey Weinstein of suns. That's what it feels like out here. It's not good. I feel violated by this sun even looking at me, okay? Because I go out there, I can't even walk on the grass. I'm like, wow, this sun is murderous, all right? Only good thing is, kills all the bugs. I feel like bugs are dying in this sun. That's how hot it is. It randomly started raining at some point today, and it was hot water. Hot water. I could have cooked top ramen. I could have cooked top ramen and played rummy. That's what I was trying to say. With this sun, with this hot rain that was boiling down from the sky. It doesn't make sense how hot it is outside in Texas right now. And listen, I know there's a lot of listeners in California that are like, oh, I bet you're happy you left now. Oh, yuck, yuck, yuck. Yeah, I still am, bitch. Hey, bitch, still happy I'm here, not in California. All right? Because guess what? My gas prices aren't in the quadruple digits yet. Okay? They're getting there, but not yet. It's just this is one reason I like living in Texas. This is when I moved here. One of the things I realized, Texas actually has seasons. Like the world changes in Texas. And this might be a normal thing for the rest of the country. But I was in California, and yeah, it would get hot in the summer and cold, in part of the year, but it was never that much of a crazy, it's crazy rain and all this stuff happening. It was like a very freak thing, especially where I was in Ventura, the last place I lived before moving to Texas. The softest place you could ever live, Ventura, okay? Any beach town is really soft because it's just like you're not dealing with weather. It's just 85. It's just 80. And people are like, "Oh, it's 91 today." Wow. 91. It's cooking. The weather's so nice in Ventura that a lot of places don't even have central air. What a bold move. If I didn't have central air in Texas right now, I might be dead. I might not be recognizable as the person I was before I moved here if I didn't have central air. Okay? Shit's just crazy out here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? And I got a message from ERCOT, which is the electricity company out here in Texas. These motherfuckers saying, "Hey, just so you know, we might turn your power off today. We just want to, keep things nice and tight. We don't want to overuse the AC. Hey, you guys had a lot of time to fix your grid." Okay? And for people who don't know, if you guys remember that Texas had a grid failure right before I moved to Texas. I moved to Texas a month after the freeze. And thank God I did. We almost were here during that freeze, but thank God we didn't. Part of that reason that happened was not that the grid was overwhelmed. Texas has a weird system of the way they do electricity. They have all these different electricity suppliers bid on the power cost. So they literally couldn't get people to pay. It was like a whole scandal that a lot of people didn't know about. And it has to do with these weird bidding wars with the way that they do electricity out here. It's weird. And this just, we won't get into that yet. Because I started thinking about this other thing that I just read an article on about how Roundup is being found in like 80% of people's urine. That they did a test, a urine analysis on like 80, I forgot how many people they tested, kids, adults, and 80% of them had traces of this Roundup ingredient that was linked to causing cancer, lymphoma, which is a bad one. And it like makes you question, how does this happen? And obviously it's because of produce and because there's not a lot of regulation. And someone made a comment about when I was reading this article, I was reading one of the comments, and it was saying that this is what happens when people want all this liberty and we don't have regulations, and that people should be entitled to do what they want, and it's up to the people to decide if they want to utilize that thing. I feel like there's a few areas where it should be, this is a hard question. A few areas where you should be able to have regulation and control. And I think it comes down to legitimate safety. There should be, when it comes to like food and water, there should be more control on that. But it's a weird conundrum. I don't know if that's the right word to use, because you start getting into weird areas of liberty if you start saying, well, these companies shouldn't be allowed to do this. I think if your product is causing cancer, you probably shouldn't be allowed to do that. If it's ending up in the urine by transmission of the actual produce, we gotta figure something out. These companies shouldn't be able to get away with this. Just like Monsanto, there's been so much shit with that where it's just like, how is this still happening? you know? But the reason why that sparked that thought in my mind was going back to this ERCOT thing about when you don't regulate a system like electricity and it's open for business, and they have like a capitalistic look on how energy should be used, it can create opportunities for the grid to be vulnerable. And that was a thing that happened back then. It wasn't necessarily that the grid just straight up failed. It was, and listen, I'm butchering this. I listened to a podcast about it like a year ago, and then I'm just trying to pull sound bites from it. Okay, that's all I'm trying to do right now. I have no real evidence other than that podcast I listened to. Okay. I wish life sometimes was like the movie Limitless. I just rewatched it again. One of the greatest movies of all time. That is such a great movie from start to finish. But if you haven't seen Limitless, it's that movie. It's that movie about a guy who takes a pill and he becomes a genius, like beyond genius. It's like Flowers for Algernon on crack. Shout out to Flowers for Algernon. Okay, listen. That was the first book as a kid. I remember, I think I had to read it for freshman year. I think it was freshman year. That movie resonated with, like, it just, I don't know, it had such a weird impact on me. It's one of those books that was like required reading before freshman year in high school that it really just stuck with me. And I just thought it was such a crazy journey, you know? That's why I really like storytelling when it's a definitive trajectory like that, where you go on a journey. I think that's why I've always loved those subsistence living shows, is because it's such a full show. You get all your senses stimulated, you know? Is there anything better than watching like a Life Below Zero show and they get food? Like they not only do they shoot something, but they also cook it. And they're just like, you know, there's the one Eskimo family. I forgot. I don't even know if Eskimo is allowed. Is the Eskimo allowed anymore? Eskimo pies? Is that still a thing? Dude, fucking white people out here canceling everything. We already lost pancake syrup, Goya beans. Fucking Eskimo pies are next. I'm telling you right now. Hands off. But there's this one husband on there who is just like, yeah, you know, we go out there, we get what we can, you know, we live off the land, and we just shot a couple caribou, and that should get us through the winter. You know, we'll trade with the other people in town. We'll get some Seallubber, and we can eat the fish frozen when we eat the Seallubber, and it just makes my willy tingle in like such a caveman way of just like, oh yeah. That's why when you go camping, is there anything more relaxing than actually looking into a fire? No. Just makes your native willy tingle. You just sit there and think. And it's because whenever you had a fire back in like in our genes, we're wired that fire equals success. That it usually meant that we were cooking something back in the day, you know? There's like all these weird triggers in our body that are like activated, and we don't realize it. It's like our lizard brain, that when we do certain things, our lizard brain gets activated, and it's like a reward system. When you're like looking into a fire, it like literally releases dopamine through your body. I think it's the same thing when you're fishing. Is there anything better than when you're fishing at a lake and you feel that boom, boom, boom on your pole, that indistinguishable feeling of having a fish on your line? There ain't nothing like it. That's the greatest sensation ever. I mean, I could probably name a couple others, but that's it for me, you know? And it's always funny because, you know, when you think you have a fish on the line, you're like, is that a fish? It's never a fish when you're wondering if it's a fish. And then when it's always a fish, you're like, oh, this is definitely a fish. So it's always bullshit that you think you have one, you know? It didn't make a lot of sense, but anyway, we're just going to keep moving on. I need to go fishing. That's like one of my favorite things to do. Clears the mind. And I think it is tied into those DNA triggers, that reward system. Just being out on a river. Like, isn't it crazy that our world is becoming so like all technology? People are spending so much more time inside, and depression and anxiety is skyrocketing. Like, that's gotta, like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills sometime. I'm taking crazy bills, okay? Crazy bills, all kinds of Richards. I feel like that's gotta be something. When there's like these direct correlations of people are always inside, they're not getting enough sunlight, and depression, anxiety. Like, we're not getting any of our reward systems fed. And it's like, you got to feed the beast. You got to feed the beast, okay? You got to be out there doing stuff to take care of your meat wagon. You got to be working out. You got to be getting enough sleep. You got to be getting some sunlight, eating good food. And it's like, honestly, I always feel so much better if I have like a nice salad, fish, veggies for dinner than if I go get a burger or something. If it's processed, I'm just like, I feel terrible about myself. And you just actually don't feel well. I usually feel tired and puffy the next day. Your boy's trying to get right with God, okay, at the end of the day. And I don't mean God upstairs. I mean the God within. Know what I'm saying, pimp? Okay? I just mean, I'm just trying to get my life back in tune with Mother Nature, okay? Been still nibbling on them mushrooms, okay? Doing my little micro dosing. Just seeing what the universe has got for me, okay? Listen, we're on some weird rambles because it's hot as fuck outside right now, all right? And you know what? You know what's the most disrespectful thing I've ever done to a band of great comedians? Produced a comedy show that was outdoors on the hottest Texas day, literally the hottest 10-day forecast. Your boy is like, I'm having a comedy show outdoors. Traditionally, guys aren't supposed to wear shorts while doing comedy. Okay? Let's force these people to tell jokes. I'll tell you guys this right now. Every comedian that was on the show on Friday at Revival Coffee, they did great. Phenomenal. Okay? Did I have to bring 2 sets of clothes? 1, setting up everything. 2, to actually perform in? Yeah, I did. Okay. It was hot as fuck on Friday. Had a great show though. Shout out to everybody who came out. Listen, I've been producing this show for a little while now, and your biggest fear when producing a comedy show, at least for me, is you show up and no one is there. Okay. When I first, and it's probably PTSD, when I first started getting into comedy, after a little while, I got an opportunity to be hosting a lot of shows. And I was hosting pretty much a show every Sunday. I became the host of it, where I would, do a little bit of time up front, and then I'd bring on every act. And it was at this place that weekend after weekend, it would pull no one really in. We'd be lucky if we'd have 3 to 4 people in the crowd. Okay. And even just being the host, it was brutal for me. Okay. Because there was times when I would be like, the feature act of this show, where it was like, I wouldn't be hosting, I'd be a feature act. And I'd be, told the marketing and everything, oh, we're going to get a crowd in there. Let's do this and do that. And then I'd promote it, and I would get a couple people to come in. There was nothing worse. I remember I showed up to one show, and no one was there. There was no one at the show. And it was like, since I was the feature act, I was like, oh, I'm going to get there after it starts, maybe 20 to 30 minutes before I actually have to go on stage. And I get there and there's no one there. The first act hasn't even started because there's no one there. And I have a couple friends coming to see the show, and I'm mortified because I'm just like, oh my God, like this is just going to be so awkward that they're going to show up and there's going to be no one else there but them. You know how hard that is? You know how brutal that is to do to one of your friends? It's terrible. I hate like that though, that kind of moment. It's just brutal. And I remember texting them like, hey, I don't think the show is going to go through the way I was hoping tonight. Let's have you guys come to another show. And they're like, no, we're already on the way. It's going to be great. And I was like, no, there's literally no one here. Don't. They're like, it's going to be fine. Don't worry. And then like, thankfully, they were very sweet and supportive. They laughed. Dude, I think with the comedians filling up the seats also, it was like 5 or 6 people. Brutal. Those sets, that's where you get hair on your willy, okay? It's because it's brutal. You have to, I don't know, they're just hard. They're hard sets. But anyway, the point I was making is that I would do these shows, and a lot of times, more than not, every now and then we'd get a show that was like 10, 15 people, maybe, and that to me, I was like, packed house tonight, baby. Let's fucking pull out the classics. And a lot of times we would have comedians come all the way from LA, and it was like an 1.5-hour drive for them. And they'd be posting it and blah, blah, blah. Ventura, I'll be there tonight, blah, blah, blah. And then they would get there, and I just watch their face of realizing that they're about to perform to an empty room. And they're just making gas money, to go out there. And it was brutal. And I hated it. I hate when you try to produce something and nothing happens. So every time I'd produce one of these shows, I was just, all I ever wanted, and this is like the way I look at producing a show, is I just want to give other comics a good audience. Give them opportunities, make them feel good. And because I know how it feels to have other comics be shitty to you and to not make you feel welcomed in an environment. Like, I just want them to have fun. I want them to feel like they can say whatever fucking joke they want. And just, I hate to say this word, but it'd be a safe space for them to do whatever kind of comedy they want and not be worried about bombing or being judged. That's another shitty thing. Sometimes I've been on some shows where it's just like, it's the cool kids, and they're like, they don't want to laugh, and they're like, I don't know, you feel this weird, like you have to not prove yourself, but it's just like there's this weird thing where it's like some people think they're like too cool for school, and you're just like, this is weird. So I always want that, and I want them to have a good audience. And luckily, we've had great crowds, and this show, amazing to still be able to pull off dude, it was over 100 degrees when the sun was still going down. And that, dude, 100 degrees in Central Texas is much different than 100 degrees anywhere else, okay? Because it's hot and it's humid as fuck, okay? It's the swamp ass Thor 2022, okay? And somehow with, just a few hiccups and things happening, we're able to like pack it out past capacity. We probably had like 50 to, I think, 60 people maybe. There's a lot of standing room and everything, which is great for that place. Anything over 20 people, I'm like, we fucking made it, So to still have that kind of turnout, amazing. Thank you to all the comics and all the people who came out. Met a few new people. So if you're listening to this podcast, welcome, friend. Welcome to 7 Minutes Inside of Evan, huh? I spilled water on my microphone. We'll see what happens with this episode, huh? That should be fine, right? Just sucked it off. Anyway, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I really hope this microphone doesn't break, but listen, we gotta talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Thor, Thunder and Love. If you haven't seen it yet, spoiler alerts ahead. This might be the last topic we have on the podcast today, talking about Thor, Love and Thunder. If you don't know, your boy is a big Marvel fan, okay? I love them all. I've seen them all multiple times, except for a couple random. That whole, what is it, Miss Marvel? Whatever that show they have on Disney Plus that's like for kids, nah, dog. Not for me. I'm not being a part of it. All the other ones, the original Iron Man, phenomenal. Listen, until he's gone, do you not realize how big of a piece Robert Downey Jr. is in Iron Man, in just the Marvel canon, okay? it's like, because Thor, Thunder and Love came out, okay? And there's a lot of mixed reviews. But you also have to what is it? Heed your expectations. Is that what people say? You have to hold off on them. You can't, because there was no peak like Endgame. What Marvel did from the Iron Man movie, the original one, all the way to Endgame might not ever be recreated again. So you have to curb your expectations. We'll go with that one. You have to curb your expectations on what Marvel movies are going to be moving forward. What the Avenger movies are going to be moving forward. Okay? Thor, Love and Thunder. I don't know how I feel about it. Okay? On one hand, I liked it. On the other hand, I see completely why people were let down by this movie. What people were expecting. And I'll be honest, they turned up the rom-com maybe 10% too high on this movie. 10% too much. You should have dialed it back a bit. It's like with Ragnarok, when Thor, the original Thor movie came out, way too stoic, way too one-dimensional, way too this character, He was too much of Thor. So then they started lightening him up a bit. Remember in the first fucking Thor movie, they had his fucking eyebrows bleached blonde. It just looked odd. But Thor Ragnarok, one of the great, that's a phenomenal Marvel movie on its own. And then the character arc and the changes that they've given Thor throughout Infinity War first, when he came out this badass and he was like, whoop-de-woo, bring me Thanos. That was like the dopest shit. You get to see all his different character. And to see then how he was in Endgame. And then finally come around. He's had so much character development. It's amazing. And it felt like it all crescendoed. We're missing a lot of words today. Okay? Well, that's fine. We're in a heat wave. Heat wave! Speaking of heat wave, Chris Hemsworth's ass. Damn. Okay, the man is stacked, double cheeked up. Okay. Anyway, it felt like they're trying to carve out where this character goes. All right. It seems like Marvel is just experimenting, or they're trying to they use this movie as a setup to the next movie. Okay, it felt like a stepping stone in a different direction. And yeah, they had Jane in it and everything like that. I thought their story was good. It felt a little too rom-com-y, and it felt too disconnected from all the other Marvel movies. And the problem with that is that doesn't fall on them. It falls on us as Marvel fans being so attached and spoiled with all these crossovers. What the MCU has done with crossovers is insanity. The fact that in Endgame, I still was like, Wolverine didn't show up. When we had something like 30 superheroes in Endgame, I still wanted more. I'm a spoiled little child when it comes to Marvel. We all are. Because do you remember how even in the first Avenger, Captain America, when they would be like, Stark Enterprise, and you would just see the sign on a box of bullets, and you'd be like, oh my God, that's Tony Stark's dad. Oh, that was enough back in the day to get my rocks off. Now, if I don't have 10 superheroes, I can't even get hard for a Marvel movie. This took a turn, okay? But you see, the point I'm making is that I don't think Thor, Thunder and Love is a terrible Marvel movie. I think people just didn't go into it with the right expectations. Everybody, I have one friend, he was by himself, okay? He's never going to be the same with how distraught he was with the fact that movie was the way it was. Just terrible for him. He was upset. Not only did he feel like he got nothing from the movie, he felt like that movie stole something from him. He'll never be the same again, okay? He'll never be the same. was like as lame as a Raw, you know? Anyway, but that's why I don't think it was a bad movie. I thought Christian Bale killed it. Okay. I think that, and this is almost the problem with Game of Thrones. This is what Game of Thrones did. It created such an amazing thing that everybody, all the fans, came up with their own fucking thought babies of what it should be. We all went into fantasy mode, like ludicrous. What's your fantasy? We just all fucking, imagine if this happened in Game of Thrones. Like there was so much fucking saliva over what could possibly happen and all these fan theories. And it was so white hot that it ended up never meeting expectations in that finale. Granted, what Game of Thrones did with that last season, dog shit. You guys, you could have done better. This isn't you guys getting a get out of jail free card, okay? It could have been a lot better. But it's like climax expectation syndrome, all right? We were all ready for the greatest thing to have our mind blown, and it was just, it wasn't that. And it's the same thing with Marvel, and I think that's what happened with it. Because you think about Doctor Strange, what was like the craziest thing about Doctor Strange? It was a dopamine. It was like a rave of Marvel movies. Just like Sandstorm was playing and DJ Tiesto was just like, and it was all these different, you got all these great cameos and mind blowing. Oh my God, Krasinski's in it. We had the original Professor X, and that movie was again a crossover because we had multiple characters. And then you look at the movie before, Spider-Man, No Way Home. Okay, probably the most ambitious crossover that you could expect. Like that's the thing with Spider-Man now is I don't know where Spider-Man goes after that kind of peak. Where can they go? When you've given, that might be a movie that exceeded expectations, or at least met the wildest dreams of what fans wanted out of that movie. When you have a crossover of 3 completely disconnected movies, you just go, yeah, we can do that. They brought out Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, in a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. That's the most ambitious thing of all time. That's more ambitious than like the MCU crossovers. This is where we're different timelines now. Those actual actors, they actually pull that off. Amazing. So I think that's where a lot of it is with Thor. Because I mean, and listen, I'm not giving it a get out of jail free card. Could have been a better story. I think they cranked up the rom-com way too much. They tried too hard with jokes. They stuffed it a little bit. I would have liked a little bit more seriousness. Okay. They made it a really fun movie. It felt like the whole thing had confetti on it. That's what the movie felt like at the end of the day. Way too much confetti. It almost felt like they were trying to get a younger demographic, and that could be it. Marvel could just be shifting their demographic. They might be done with this aging demographic that they've been going after. Those people who are starting to hit the 35 to 40 demo, they might be like, we're kind of done with that. And they're starting to go younger. They're trying to maybe, and that might be the push with whatever movie or TV show they just released on Disney Plus, something Marvel, Miss Marvel. It might be a push that they're trying to go younger. Okay. It would make sense. Their parent company is Disney. All right. So that could be it too. But as far as what that Infinity Saga was, you'll never top it. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this episode. I hope you found it entertaining at the very least. If you're in Texas, you're in the heat wave with me, fucking protest. Okay? Just get out there and vote, kids. I don't know, at the end of the day, that's all you can do. All right? I just hid inside all day. I went outside, got assaulted by the Harvey Weinstein son, and then I just hid inside. I said, okay, I got my vitamin D for the day. Good day to you, sir. And I just went inside. And then now I'm going to go do stand-up in a little bit, and it is what it is. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this episode. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe. We're going to start putting out a lot new content and types of content. Helps the algorithm. And remember, no matter what, ladies and gentlemen, I still love you.